Welcome to Time for Health. I'm your host, Rachel Fall, and we're very glad you've joined us. We talk about a different topic every time. We find an expert in the field, share some information. So I always say, don't necessarily use this as medical advice for yourself. You're always going to want to talk to your healthcare provider before you make any plans or changes like that for your health. But this is good information to talk to them about. So today we're going to talk about nutrition labels, food labels, a really important topic to me. And our guest is Erin Lenahan, so thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Tell me a little bit about yourself.
My name is Erin. I'm a current dietetic intern. I'm doing my internship through Kent State University. I'm about 4 or 5 weeks in, and I have just about a year to go.
Okay, well, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So a dietetics program, we talked a little bit, so I kind of have the inside scoop, but you have a bachelor's degree in biology, and then
I'm pursuing my master's degree in nutrition. Yep.
Okay, gotcha. So you have to apply for grad school to schools that have a dietetics program. Okay.
Yep.
And I was telling you, a little career advice to anybody who might be watching, great field to go into because we've really screwed up nutrition, I think, in the United States for a long time, myself included. So you will never be out of a job or out of demand. So thank you for being here. Talk about, I guess, nutrition labels have, or are going about to, undergo some changes. They kind of change the regulations on them from time to time. So what's changing now?
So the current nutrition label is pretty outdated. It's about 20 years old. A lot of people actually admit that they don't read them because of formatting, the size, and just general lack of understanding. So this prompted the FDA, which is the Food and Drug Administration. It's a governmental agency that regulates food labels. This prompted them to make an update to the label, which is going to be mandatory for all food companies to follow this January 2020.
Okay. So as of January, if there's food on the shelf that was out before January 1st, 2020, it might have the old labels. We'll obviously go through that. But then as of anything new, January 1st, 2020, we'll have new food labels.
New food labels. It looks similar, but there's definite changes that you can spot just by looking at them.
Okay.
A lot of food companies have already complied with the new regulation. So there's some things that you see that have changed, such as added sugars are not being required.
Yep.
Just the general design is being updated. Some of the formatting and some nutrients that were previously required are no longer required to be listed. And then some nutrients, such as vitamin D and potassium, are now required to be listed.
Oh, okay. So a whole kind of slew of changes all at once.
So the FDA conducts research, and now we know that vitamin D and potassium are a serious health concern, that there's a lot of deficiency in the U.S. So that prompted them to make it a requirement to be on the nutrition label, to kind of help people to see where
what's a good source, what's a bad source.
Exactly. Yep.
And I've always said, I've gone through different tracking devices and tracking my food, and it's just nice. I think it's important to know what's in your food, and I might have a fast food something or other, or a double chocolate something or other, but at least I've made a conscious choice about it, and okay, I know this has got a lot of sugar, and so maybe I'm going to have something a little healthier with it or something like that. So it's just about arming people with information, right?
Yes,
that's
exactly
what the labels are for. So nutrition labels is what's on the back, typically, of a product, not necessarily the front labels.
Right.
So is that the more important label to look at, is the back label?
That is the more important label to look at. There is information on the front of the package, such as health claims, just statements about the product. That includes something like low in sodium, high in vitamin C. And while these are important statements, they really only give you a snapshot of the nutritional quality of the product. It's really important to flip the product over and look at the nutrition label to assess the product in its entirety.
What it really has inside.
Because something that's low in sodium might be high in added sugars, or might be high in fat, or something like that.
Yes.
So it's best to flip it over and really read the whole thing.
Gotcha. I always found it funny. I probably shouldn't say a name of a candy, but it was a candy, like a licorice candy, and it said, if I'm not mistaken, it said gluten-free, because kind of gluten-free was like a thing. I mean, some people have to do it for health issues. Some people just choose to do it or whatever. But it was like, well, of course it's gluten-free. There's like no duh.
Obviously,
there's no health anything in it.
Right.
So anyway, the back of the label is the most important.
Yeah, because a lot of times they do use those statements on the front as a promotional to grab your attention.
Right.
So it is helpful because it provides you with good information about the health attributes, but you really want to look at the back to see it all.
Actual nutrition label. And included is the ingredients as well. Okay. What is the most, so we're just going to skip the front of the package to the best of our ability, although there's certain, you know, where they place things and what they put on there to grab your attention is probably a very well researched marketing strategy for companies.
Yes.
They've put a lot of...
Yeah, so they actually had to put regulations on, I mean, the type size and the placement and how far away it could be from the nutrition label.
Wow.
It's a very in-depth area of research right now.
So when we flip it over to look at the nutrition label, what is the first thing we should look at, or the most important thing we should look at?
So the very first thing you should look at is the serving size, because
I wondered if you were going to say that. I've heard that before.
Because everything on that nutrition label is directly related to the serving size. So if you don't know the serving size and you're eating more or less than the serving size, then everything is affected by that.
So a box of macaroni and cheese, you can't just, you have to know that the whole box isn't the serving.
Right. But an interesting part about the nutrition label that it's being updated is that if a product can be reasonably consumed in one sitting, it has to have that nutrition information. So you might see a dual nutrition label, which has the amount in one serving and the amount in one container. So that's a very interesting part. So it'll help people to see what exactly they're eating.
Bottles of pop come to mind?
Yes.
Sometimes one bottle is not one serving.
Right. So,
but you would reasonably consume a bottle at a time.
So one serving of soda, they actually updated it from 8 ounces to 12 ounces. So 12 ounces is going to be one serving. So a bottle of pop you find in the grocery store at the checkout, that's about 16.9 ounces usually. It's more than one serving, but it's not quite two. So it's required to be labeled as one serving because it's reasonably consumed in one sitting. Yep.
Oh.
It's tricky. But so they're both labeled as one serving, but the calories and the added sugar, all that nutritional information is going to be a lot different.
Yes. And that's to help out. And again,
it is all to help.
Drink your pop, that's fine, but you also know that it has this much sugar in it.
Because everything is in moderation. You can have everything in moderation, but you just have to be aware of what you're consuming and what the nutritional information is.
Yes. So the first thing we look at is serving size. And then, I don't know, my eyes go to like calories and fat and all that. So I guess just kind of go down the nutrition list and talk about either what it looks like now or what it will look like. What are some of the changes?
So the calories, they're going to be in the same place. They bolded it and enlarged the type size of it so that they're more, it pops out more.
Okay.
The total fat is going to be the same. It's required to be listed, but now you can see what the source of fat is.
Okay.
So you'll be able to tell the saturated, monounsaturated will be listed, polyunsaturated, and trans fat. A lot of products don't necessarily have trans fat as much now because research was done and
it's bad.
Yep, it's bad. It increases your risk of chronic disease, so food companies recognize that and try not to use it as much.
Is it still in some things?
It is still in some things. It's found naturally in some like animal products.
Okay.
But it's not as common as it was in the past. So that's good.
Yes. And so in the fats, it'll break it down like total fat, and then saturated fat is also not great.
Not great. Nope,
trans
not
fat
great.
is really bad.
Yep.
And
what you want
fats
to look for is the unsaturated fats, which are going to be your monounsaturated and your polyunsaturated fats, because these the monounsaturated help raise your good cholesterol, and the polyunsaturated help decrease your bad cholesterol.
The bad stuff.
So yes.
Okay. So the unsaturated.
So it is important. The source of fat is important because it determines what the health attributes will be of the food product.
Okay. So calories and fat, what else do I go to? Sugar, like carbohydrates, sugar, talk about that because that's a change.
So carbohydrates, they're now they're requiring added sugars to be listed, which is going to be under the carbohydrates section. It'll go sugars, added sugars, and sugar alcohols if they're included in the product. So for added sugars, it's required to be listed because it's a big part of our diets. Yeah. So the recommendation is less than 10% of your daily calories from added sugars. So they require you to list added sugars if it's in the product.
Okay.
But you can also find them in the ingredients list.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, you can find them. There's a lot of names for added sugars. So you got raw sugar, you got honey, you got high fructose corn syrup, corn sweetener. So
even if it's a healthy sugar, it could be an added sugar. Is that right?
So natural sugars
Change-
sugars are found in like fruits and dairy products.
Right.
And then added sugars are anything added during processing.
Okay.
So any kind of sugar that's not naturally found in the product is going to be considered an added
Right.
sugar.
And if you're paying attention to sugar, are you paying attention to naturally occurring sugar and added sugar?
Well,
Kind of depends on your need, your level of need.
It kind of depends. You really want to the recommendation is to eat below 10% of your calories from added sugar.
Okay.
And this is because added sugars provide you with a lot of extra calories with no nutritional benefits.
Right.
So, for example, natural sugar, such as found in a banana,
Right.
you're getting those added sugars, but you're getting a lot of nutritional benefits as well.
Okay.
So that's why you want to kind of limit your added sugars.
Okay. So pay attention to it. The added sugars are really the ones that you want that are added in the processing.
In the processing. But it's important to know that you can eat them in moderation, and it could be helpful for your diet, because something like flavored yogurt, it contains added sugar, but you're getting a lot of the calcium, a lot of nutritional benefits from that yogurt. So you can have them in moderation. Just be aware of how much and what you're eating.
Gotcha. Okay. Sodium is sore. I don't often, but I probably should, and I probably will. As we all age, we need to pay attention to different things. So, talk about sodium. Is that changing at all?
The sodium recommendation, it's going down from 2,400 milligrams to 2,300 milligrams, because we know that the risks related to high blood pressure, chronic disease.
And that's how much you should have a day?
That's
or in a product?
No, in a day. That's really what you want to try to be below.
Okay.
Your body really only needs 1,500 milligrams to function properly of sodium. But we kind of give you a little range up to 2,300 milligrams before you start seeing those adverse effects.
Right.
And it's interesting because the average American diet consumes about 3,400 milligrams a day.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, so it's present in your frozen products, fast food products, any really processed products. So it's just important to be aware of what you're eating, and so that you can, if you're eating a product that's high in sodium, you can maybe somewhere in the rest of your day get a lower, something a little more,
Like I want my fast food French fries every once in a great while.
Yes, in moderation.
Right. Yes, not daily. Good golly, no. Everything in moderation, that kind of is the recurring theme. So also on the nutrition label is percent of daily value. So tell me a little bit about that.
So that's, it was really created as a reference so that you can see how much of a specific nutrient in one serving is contributing to your daily goal.
Okay.
So for example, if for calcium, the recommendation is that you get 1,000 milligrams a day.
Okay.
So if a product contains 100 milligrams, that's going to give you 10% of your daily value.
Okay.
So really,
you got a little ways to go.
Yep, you got a little ways to go,
source.
but and that's a good way to identify the source of how much is in a product. So it goes both ways though, because you can look at it and look at sodium and really see.
Yikes.
Your recommendation
is
2,300, and if you're really getting like 50% in one product, it's a good eye opener to see.
Probably not a good choice.
So so it's a really helpful part of the nutrition label that I think is not utilized as much as
it's not the one I pay attention to.
And I think it's because people just don't understand it or don't know what it is or anything along those lines.
And thank you for helping us figure that out.
Yes, you are very welcome.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and we will be right back. And we're back. We're talking about nutrition labels, the ones on the back that have the actual information. But I do want to talk a little bit about the front of the packaging, the stuff that we see on the shelves or wherever. So that's where you said a lot of times they'll put claims, low in, high in, good source of, whatever. And I'm sure it is a very regulated, if they say it's low in something, it has to be specifically this kind of low in something. So talk about low in something.
So low in. For example, for fat, if it says low in fat, it has to be less than 3 grams of fat. If it's low in fat.
Total fat?
Total fat.
Okay.
Less than 3 grams total of fat in the product,
Okay.
in one serving of the product.
Okay.
So it's important to kind of, to notice that. That's good if you're looking
Right.
to limit your fat, but flipping the label over and seeing what they added in replace of lowering the fat is also important to consider, because a lot of times taking some fat out, you need to replace it with something to
Because some of
to
the
keep
flavor
the
comes
texture,
with fat.
keep
Or
the texture,
yeah.
flavor, yep. So a lot of times they'll add in sugar, sodium, stuff like that to keep the texture and the flavor for it.
Gotcha. Same with low in sugar?
Yep, so low in sugar, it's kind of the same thing. They take something out and they replace it.
Does it have to be 3 grams of sugar in a serving size like the fat is, if it says low in sugar? Or?
Low in sugar is more, they're looking for added sugars and stuff like that, and that's kind of what they're focusing on.
Right, okay.
But you can have the claim no added sugar as well, which does not necessarily mean the product has no sugar.
Right. So it
like
just has like the naturally occurring
sugar. So like dried fruit,
Sure.
they may not have added sugar, but it's probably got a lot of sugar,
high
of natural
sugar
sugar. Yep.
content.
So you really just got to pay attention and get comfortable flipping packages over.
Right, take
Yep.
your time. Yeah. Maybe you come shopping with me after this. Reduced is another one. Reduced fat, reduced.
Yep, reduced sodium,
Yeah.
reduced sugar, everything like that. So reduced only means that you have to reduce the nutrient by 25% versus the original. So if
Okay.
the original product had 1,000 milligrams of sodium, they can reduce it by 25%, and that product can still have 750 milligrams and have the label reduced sodium.
Reduced sodium.
Which can be, that's eye-grabbing.
It is reduced.
It's reduced, but it's still, but the thing is that the front of the package has to have a disclaimer on there, which is in real small print.
I was going to say, I'm not sure if I've
Real
actually.
small print, and it says not a low sodium food. But all of that stuff is super regulated, but those claims and those terms and stuff, they're really,
specific.
they're there to help you, but it's a marketing tool.
For sure.
Yep. Because
And it works pretty good sometimes.
Yeah, they want you to buy it. They want you to buy the product.
Right.
And a lot of times it's good nutritional information.
Yeah.
But you really have to look at the whole label.
Yep.
To really get a good a good sense of what.
It just brought bread and like whole grain, 12 grain, 47 grain, all that kind of stuff. So sometimes it'll say that on the front.
So what they're trying to market, they're trying to give you some information on like the fiber and the grain quality. So a lot of those times, they're using it as
Right.
marketing.
Well,
but you can
12 grains is good, then 17 grains must be better.
Exactly. But you can flip the product over and look at the ingredients list to look for your fiber, which would be your beta-glucans, pectin, cellulose, bran.
Okay.
Those are the words you want to look in the ingredients list to really give you a good picture of the grain
What's
quality.
actually in there. Now, is it true if it's like whole grain is what we want? And so is whole grain listed as the first ingredient? Like it should be listed
So
as the whole ingredient.
The order of the ingredients is by the quantity in the product.
Oh, okay.
So the very first ingredient is what's going to be the most present in that product.
Gotcha.
So that's another important thing to look at too, because if sugar is your
my
first
whole grain is like way
down
at the
very
bottom.
bottom. So like if sugar's your first, you want to kind of pay attention to that. If those ingredients that raise a red flag, if the higher they are in the list, the more present they are in the product in one serving of the product. So it's important to read that and check out the order of the ingredients on the ingredients list.
Okay. Whole grain, GMO.
Yes.
So what does that even mean?
That is, it has to do with genetic modification of the product.
Okay.
Which it involves the DNA and the gene sequencing and all this super fun stuff.
Wow.
Which is like, a lot of people are so into this topic right now, but don't know what it means.
Right.
It really has nothing at all to do with the nutritional quality of the product.
Okay.
And there's no current research stating that either way, products with genetic modification or without, neither is
Better
favored.
or worse
Exactly.
or whatever. Okay. Which brings to mind organic. Some things say it's another thing like organic.
It's another,
I think that sounds
that's another
good.
buzzword right now.
Yeah, it sounds better.
So organic is more so talking about the growing or the raising of the product.
Okay.
So something that's organic has to be made with organic ingredients, which involves the soil quality, the use of additives, the use of pesticides, stuff like that.
Okay.
Yep. So
it's not necessarily that they, well, I don't know, but it's not necessarily that they can't use any pesticides or anything, but it has to probably be like
it's within
really small.
Yes, it's within a certain limit. So there's categories of organic. You can see 100% organic, which means 100% of the ingredients in that product have no pesticides, nothing like that.
Okay.
It also also has to be no artificial additives, anything like that either.
Okay.
Nothing that's like not normally found in the product.
Okay.
So then there's also just the word organic, and that means at least 95% of the ingredients in that product have to comply with those regulations. And then you can also see made with organic ingredients.
Yes,
which is,
you're right.
Yes, which is 70% of the ingredients in that has to follow that guideline.
Okay.
So it's very interesting that there's
so many levels.
Yes, there's levels, and they all mean something different.
What do the things I buy say on them? Yeah.
Right, and again, that doesn't have anything to do with the nutritional quality. One isn't necessarily have more nutrients or anything like that versus a non-organic product.
Right.
It has to do with how it's grown, how it's raised, stuff like that.
Okay. That kind of brings up a question. I'm not necessarily sure it's pertaining necessarily to nutrition labels, but organic to me seems maybe cleaner, produced in a cleaner fashion, sort of.
Yes. It's
fewer man-made things are involved and more natural things are involved, sort of.
Yeah, to an extent, because there's no additives that can be involved if something's organic. There's nothing that, no artificial colors or preservatives.
Okay.
So that is true, but that doesn't mean it's healthier in the
Right.
sense that it has
more calcium and
exactly.
more monounsaturated fat and all that kind of stuff.
And it can be, I mean, if the soil regulation, making sure that it's healthy, clean soil that things are grown in, can I mean, a lot of people would care about that.
Right.
Absolutely, but it's not necessarily more healthy of a product.
Yeah. Okay. We were talking about high fat and low fat, high sugar and low sugar. So to me, sometimes I've heard people it's just better to use just butter. Just use butter. It's more natural, it's whatever, versus margarine or different things like that. But there are people with heart disease, maybe, I guess I'm asking, that can't use butter because there's the fat in butter just exacerbates. Same with sugar. Like, don't necessarily drink diet pop or low sugar or something, just eat the sugar. But there's some, diabetics, their body can't process that sugar. Is that, I mean, should we always go for low fat, low sugar, or
it really,
only if we have to? Or?
Right. It really depends on your specific dietary requirements.
Okay.
Which, I mean, I can talk about that for the next...
Well, next time.
Yes. So that is kind of a very, there's a lot that goes into that.
Yeah.
It's talking about specific dietary requirements. For specific sugar needs, for example, I don't think I mentioned before, but sugar alcohols.
That's one of the things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So sugar alcohols are a good replacement for people trying to manage their weight or with diabetes. Gram per gram, a gram of sugar has 4 calories, and a gram of the sugar alcohol has 2 calories per gram.
Okay.
So it's a good replacement.
Right.
It's a nutritive sweetener that replaces sugar. It's required to be listed on the nutrition label now with the update.
Okay.
And it you can also find it in the ingredients list as sorbitol, xylitol, and what's the last one? I can't remember.
I'm not. You're. And all? Does it have all at the end?
Yes. The OL is what you're looking for, because that means like alcohol, sugar alcohol.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah, look for those. Morbidol? I can't remember off the top of my head, but that's what you want to look for. The OL. Yep.
So I guess talk a little bit about the ingredient list. The backside's most important. The nutrition label is important, but then also the ingredient list. if there's added sugars, it'll say it in the nutrition part, but you can also find it, like the ingredient we need to watch out for some things in there.
Yes. So you can find all of the scary ingredients in the ingredients list. So yeah, you can always cross-reference. So if you see added sugars are in the nutrition label, you can look down at the ingredients list and find them there too. So
and then would it be, if they're high on the list,
they're high in the product.
They're high in the product.
Yes.
If they're a little bit low, all right.
Yeah, it's not going to kill you probably, but just be aware of what you're, and really go through that ingredients list. And it can be overwhelming because the words, some of the terms.
Yeah. I
mean, just alone, the word sugar can be raw sugar, honey, cane sugar, high fructose corn syrup, corn sweetener. I mean, there's a lot of different terms that can be used for simply sugar. So it can be overwhelming to read, but if you start just going through it, you can really get a lot of useful information from it.
High fructose corn syrup, good, bad, it's not great?
Well, I mean, calorie for calorie, it's the same as any other sugar. Sugar is sugar. All sugar is created equal. Essentially, calorie-wise, it's all sugar. It's all going to be processed in your body as sugar.
Okay.
So high fructose corn syrup is one of those things that's kind of in the news.
Yeah.
And you know, it's a buzz.
GMO, organic.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not, there's not enough research to say that it's the absolute worst thing in the world and you should stop using it immediately. But there's other ways. It's best not to have a whole bunch of it in your diet.
Okay. It's like everything.
Just like everything, yeah. Exactly.
So paying attention to our labels is very important. Fiber.
Yes, that is a.
Is that up on? It's in the nutrition label.
It's in the nutrition label. Yep. And it's required to be listed. It's really important for your diet, so I don't think people get enough of it.
Right.
The requirement is for men it's going to be 38, and for women it's going to be 25 grams a day.
Okay.
You can see there's a lot of label claims on that. And the front of package, high in fiber, which means it has to have at least 5 grams of fiber in a serving. A good source of fiber. It's not the same thing, but it's good. It's good. It means it has to have at least between 2.5 and 5 grams of fiber in a serving.
Okay.
So.
Okay. So cereals and bread. I mean, you really just need to kind of take. And really, when you're doing looking at labels, you don't necessarily have to do it every time you go to the store. If you get to go one time and you're by yourself and you can spend all the time you want, you can really look at some, and then this brand of bread actually is a good source of fiber and doesn't have a sugar, or this kind of spaghetti sauce doesn't have a lot of sugar in it, and so you can kind of research it and know kind of what you want to lean toward.
And just being cautious, going slow if you have the time.
Right.
Or when you get home, when you're using the product, you can really look at it and say, oh, this is a little bit, it's a little high in sugar. Maybe there's something else at the store that I can swap out, and maybe go down the bread aisle and find something that's a little more whole grains or a little less of whatever you're trying to avoid.
Right. Awesome. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. We're going to take another break and we'll be back. And we're back. I want to thank Erin for being our guest today. Learned an awful lot about nutrition labels, about the front of labels and different claims. And basically, it sounds like the moral of the story is just pay attention and everything in moderation. So talked about importance of reading those nutrition labels, taking the time just to pay attention. We're allowed to have things that we like. We don't have to necessarily eat roots and tubers all the time. We're allowed to have good stuff, tasty stuff, but just to pay attention to that nutrition information. And as always, share this information. I'm going to give you a website, knowyournutritionlabel.com. That is a site that Erin developed for her master's program, and it has a great deal of information, nutrition labels, and all kinds of information about nutrition claims and all that kind of stuff. So take that information for you, for somebody that you know and love. Share it, and if you ever have a suggestion for an episode, you can reach me at the hospital or Mrs. Pells at the high school, And until we meet again, I encourage you to make time for health.